The silence in the room was deafening as Ambassador Sharma rose from her seat, her normally composed face etched with barely contained fury. "Mr. Prime Minister Carney, with all due respect, India will not tolerate these baseless accusations any longer." Her voice, though steady, carried an undercurrent of steel that sent a chill through the diplomatic chamber. The Canadian delegation shifted uncomfortably as the world watched what would become the most explosive confrontation in Indo-Canadian relations in decades. If you're just joining us on this breaking coverage, what you're witnessing is the culmination of months of tension that has finally erupted into an international diplomatic firestorm. Before we continue with this incredible story, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth coverage of global politics that mainstream media won't show you. Ravi Mehta had never expected to be at the center of an international crisis. 6 months ago, he was just another software engineer from Bangalore who had accepted a promising position with a tech firm in Toronto. His wife Priya and their 7-year-old daughter Isha had been thrilled about their new adventure in Canada, a country long considered a welcoming haven for immigrants. The Mehta family represented the best of what the Indian diaspora had to offer: hardworking, law-abiding, and eager to contribute to their adopted homeland. That all changed on a crisp autumn morning when Ravi was awakened by an aggressive pounding on his apartment door. Bleary-eyed and confused, he opened it to find 4 stern-faced RCMP officers with a warrant for his arrest. The charge: espionage and interference in Canadian domestic affairs on behalf of the Indian government. "This has to be some mistake," Ravi stammered as they handcuffed him in front of his horrified family. Priya clutched Isha to her chest, the little girl's sobs piercing the morning quiet of their apartment building. "I'm just a programmer. I don't know anything about politics." But the Canadian authorities were unmoved. Prime Minister Mark Carney, newly elected on a platform of national security and sovereignty, had publicly announced a crackdown on what he called malign foreign influence in Canadian affairs. India, he claimed without providing evidence, had been running a sophisticated network of operatives designed to manipulate Canadian policy and elections. In New Delhi, Prime Minister Amrita Patel was having breakfast when her foreign secretary burst into the room with the news of Ravi's arrest, the 12th Indian national detained in Canada in the past month on similar charges. She set down her cup of chai with deliberate slowness, her mind already calculating the diplomatic response required. Patel, the first female Prime Minister of India, had built her reputation on protecting India's interests and its citizens abroad with unwavering resolve. "Get me everything we have on these cases," she instructed. "And schedule an emergency cabinet meeting in 1 hour." Meanwhile, in a sterile interrogation room in Toronto, Ravi sat trembling. "I swear, I don't work for the Indian government. I'm just a regular citizen who moved here for a job." Detective Sarah Williams studied him carefully. A 20-year veteran of the RCMP's National Security Division, she prided herself on being able to spot a liar. But something about this case felt off. The evidence provided by the Prime Minister's office seemed circumstantial at best: suspicious money transfers, meetings with known Indian diplomats, encrypted communications. Yet Ravi's personnel file showed nothing but an exemplary employee who occasionally attended cultural events at the Indian consulate, as did thousands of other Indo-Canadians. "Mr. Mehta, do you understand the seriousness of these charges?" she asked, her voice softer than her colleagues might have approved. Ravi nodded, his eyes filling with tears. "My daughter had just started school here. My wife was going to begin her nursing certification next month. We chose Canada because we believed in its fairness, its justice system." His voice broke. "What happens to them if I'm convicted of something I didn't do?" Across town, at the Indian consulate, Consul General Vikram Singh was dealing with a flood of panicked calls from Indian nationals and Indo-Canadians. Many reported harassment, surveillance, and discrimination in the wake of Carney's inflammatory statements. "This is becoming untenable," Singh told his deputy. "The Prime Minister is essentially criminalizing cultural connections to India. These people are being targeted simply for maintaining ties to their homeland." In Ottawa, Prime Minister Carney stood firm during a press conference. "Canada will not tolerate foreign interference in our democratic processes," he declared, his trademark confidence on full display. "The evidence we have gathered points to a coordinated campaign by Indian intelligence services to influence our policies, particularly regarding certain separatist groups operating on Canadian soil." The reference to separatist groups was not lost on anyone familiar with the long-standing tension over Canada's permissive attitude toward Khalistani separatists, whom India considered terrorists. For decades, India had expressed concern about Canadian territory being used as a base for anti-India activities, but Carney's administration had dismissed these concerns as attempts to silence legitimate political dissent. Back in New Delhi, Prime Minister Patel convened her National Security Council. "What we're seeing is not just a diplomatic disagreement," she told them. "This is a deliberate campaign to demonize India and Indians in Canada for political gain." Her foreign minister nodded grimly. Carney's approval ratings were at an all-time low before he started this witch hunt. Nothing unites voters like a foreign threat, real or imagined. "Well, he's about to learn that India is not a convenient political punching bag," Patel replied, her normally warm eyes hardening. "Prepare a comprehensive response. Diplomatic, economic, and legal. We will defend our citizens and our national honor." The next morning, Ambassador Sharma delivered India's initial response, a strongly worded diplomatic note demanding evidence for the allegations and immediate consular access to all detained Indian nationals. Privately, she warned her Canadian counterpart that India was prepared to take all necessary measures to protect its citizens and interests. The Canadian response was dismissive. "The evidence is sensitive and relates to national security," came the reply. "We cannot compromise ongoing investigations." As days turned into weeks, the situation for Ravi Mehta grew increasingly desperate. Denied bail as a flight risk, he was separated from his family and held in a medium-security facility. Priya, struggling to maintain their apartment and care for Isha alone, faced growing hostility from neighbors who had seen Ravi's arrest reported on local news. "Mommy, why did they take Daddy away?" Isha asked one night, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. "Did he do something bad?" Priya pulled her daughter close, fighting back tears. "No, sweetheart. Daddy didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and they thought Daddy did something he didn't do. But we're going to fight to bring him home." The case took an unexpected turn when Detective Williams, troubled by inconsistencies in the evidence, began quietly digging deeper. The money transfers flagged as suspicious turned out to be regular remittances to Ravi's parents in Pune. The encrypted communications were standard work-related messages using his company's security protocols. And the meetings with Indian diplomats? Cultural events open to the public, attended by hundreds. "This doesn't add up," she confided to her partner, Detective James Chen. "We're holding this man based on connections that would apply to virtually any Indian immigrant maintaining ties to their culture and family." Chen looked uncomfortable. "Williams, be careful. This investigation came from the top. The PM's office is personally invested in these cases. Since when do we conduct investigations to please politicians?" she shot back. "Something's not right here, and I'm going to find out what it is." In New Delhi, Prime Minister Patel had reached the limits of her patience. After 3 weeks of diplomatic stonewalling, with more Indians being detained and no evidence forthcoming, she approved a series of escalating measures. First came the recall of India's ambassador to Canada, for consultations, a traditional first step in diplomatic crises. Next, travel advisories warning Indians against visiting Canada due to growing anti-India activities and prejudice. Then, most significantly, economic measures targeting key Canadian industries. India is suspending negotiations on the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement with Canada, announced the Commerce Minister. Furthermore, we are reviewing all existing trade arrangements and investment frameworks. The impact was immediate. The Canadian dollar dipped, and stock in several major Canadian companies with significant Indian market exposure plummeted. Business leaders began pressuring the Carney administration for resolution. Meanwhile, Detective Williams had taken her concerns to her superior, only to be abruptly removed from the case. Undeterred, she reached out to a contact at the Globe and Mail, carefully sharing her concerns without revealing classified information. The resulting article, "Questions Emerge About Evidence in Indian Interference Cases," sent shockwaves through Canadian media. Other journalists began investigating, and soon a pattern emerged, that evidence against most detained Indians appeared flimsy at best, non-existent at worst. Public opinion began to shift. Protests organized by Indo-Canadian communities drew thousands in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. Signs reading "Being Indian is not a crime" and "Where's the evidence, Carney?" filled the streets. Human rights organizations expressed concern about ethnic profiling. The international community took notice. The United Nations called for due process and transparency. The United States, caught between two allies, urged dialogue and de-escalation. Even within Carney's own party, questions were being raised about the handling of the situation. For Ravi Mehta, however, little changed. He remained in detention, separated from his family, his career in ruins. Priya had been forced to withdraw Isha from school after bullying incidents and was considering returning to India, a heartbreaking admission of defeat for a family that had dreamed of building a life in Canada. The turning point came from an unexpected source. A junior staffer in the Prime Minister's office, troubled by what she was witnessing, anonymously leaked documents to the